discourse around the Phantasmagoria games has always been quite open. These strange games are seen as something experimental from Zune, starting all the way back with the release of Touhou 3 in 1997. And not everyone is fond of this PvP one-on-one gameplay formula present in all of them. So Zune, after the release of Touhou 9 Phantasmagoria Flower View, to not alienate the people who wanted to play something a bit more traditional to his standard bullet hell formula, had a genius idea in his creative mind. What did he decide to do? Release an even more weird and experimental game, obviously. Touhou 9.5 Shoot the Bullet, the Aya game, and the grandfather of the mere concept of Touhou side games as a whole. Well, if you use the same method that I use on not counting the fighting games as side games but its own separate thing. And surely the most famous one among them all, probably due to it being part of the era of nostalgia Touhou, with Zune already showing quite the love that he had for Aya's character even from her earlier days of existence in full swing here. This game came out a mere 4 months after the release of Touhou 9, I guess just in time for Zune to keep at bay all the people who didn't like Touhou 9. Not that side games have ever had a long development cycle anyway, even if we still have to understand to this day what Zune truly means by the total development time we spent when developing these side games in the series. And as expected from a side game, it's truly quite the unique one in its kind, that would spark a whole subgenre of official Touhou side games, with its gameplay that reached its highs and lows in terms of reception, surely over time. I actually bothered with reading the read.me Omake text file bundle with every Touhou game this time around, due to me working on the THCrap Italian translation of this game and happening to translate it for that, and the story about this game came to be is quite interesting really. Zune tells about we began experimenting with the concept of photography Damaku ever since the development of USD, and even made an entire scrapped experimental shot type for Touhou 8 that would have involved attacking via taking photos, but it never really had the opportunity to turn this idea into something concrete, since it didn't have a character that would have any reason to take photos during Damaku at the time. So when he finally created Aya for Touhou 9, now that he had the occasion, he didn't waste any time, and immediately started development on this game after Touhou 9 came out and Shoot the Bullet truly came to be. So get your cameras ready and check your battery levels, my friends, as we will finally browse this photographic journey of everyone's favorite Tengu journalist, if we ignore the other two future existence, to analyze the innovations and oddities that the first Touhou side games of the series captured in the moment, and see if this bullet has hit its target. The story is pretty cut and dry for being a Touhou side game. After the events of Touhou 9, our dear Tengu journalist Shameimaru realized that stalking random people to see what they're up to is not a viable strategy to get scoops on articles, since it ended with her getting her ass kicked 9 times out of 10. So she goes back to her routine of classic Tengu journalist activities, which consists in trying to harass and rage bait random people on the street until they decide to attack her so she can take photos their Damaku, only to plain out publicly shame them for their actions on their journal, the Bumbumaru newspaper, which is probably a money laundering front, since who the fuck would ironically want to read this? Why would Aya go to such lengths for some articles and become the most hated person in Gensokyo before Seiya was even a thing? I don't fucking know, but Tengus seem to be dumber than what they appear to be, unless they happen to dress purple. In that case, they are very smart and cute. Every time she successfully completes an article, she adds her own little personal comment to it, which, well, they are certainly comments written by Aya. Just go to show how much of a girl boss in her own mind she thinks she is, but she's probably just waiting for the day when someone shoots her down with a brick for good. The gameplay of Shoot the Bullets sets the basis for all the future Touhou photography games. Instead of shooting, Aya is able to hold down the shoot button to use her camera to snap photos of enemies and their Damaku. The goal of the game is to clear the spell card that you are facing by taking a certain number of photos that portray the boss that you are facing to pass the stage successfully. The stages are organized in a series of singular spell cards spread across 10 levels of difficulty, plus a secret EX level that you unlock at the end as a final challenge with 8 more stages to clear. You progressively unlock them by clearing either a number of total stages across all the levels, or 3 stages from the level before, with each level increasing in overall spellcard difficulty and length, by increasing the amount of photos required to successfully snap to pass the stage, featuring its own set of characters who go following an order of how strong or influential they are in Gensokyo, because they got the VIP Roblox Game Pass, so they award more Robux when you take a photo with them. Aya is able to take photos by stopping in place and entering her aiming mode, where she summons a camera marker that progressively gets smaller and smaller as you can aim it around to snap a photo at the boss or at the bullets to clear them up to help you survive. So one of the biggest challenges of the game is finding the right moment to stop and take a photo when you are not surrounded by bullets, since if you take too long to snap it, the shot will fail and fuck you, I guess. The most important mechanic of this game, though, is Aya's ability to wind up her camera faster by kicking both the focus and the shoot button pressed at the same time, since the passive normal charge is definitely way too slow to be sustainable, and in doing so, Aya is also able to be slowed down even further than her speed in normal focus mode, even if, to be honest, you are kind of a sitting duck while doing this for how snail speed you are, so it's better to use this during a window where you are safe around you and not surrounded by bullets, like basically all the other actions in this game. You get awarded a certain number of points depending on how many bullets you photograph in a shot, or on certain conditions like taking a photo where both the boss and Aya are portrayed, even if scoring is majorly optional in this game, since the main goal is to survive the spell and get enough photos before you get overwhelmed. Hope you like bright saturated colors, because Aya needs those to make the kids buy her slop journal articles to make more doff, it seems. For the way this game handles general gameplay, this game feels more like of a survival game in terms of style of Danmaku. I'll get on the overall general difficulty in a second, but for the way this game is designed, each spell card feels more like a survival test of your Danmaku dodging skills in the wait until the camera gets charged up for another shot to take. These spell cards are not really designed to be survived for long times, for how they can get at times, so you really want to be done quick with these, since there are no timer related bonuses for these stages. Let's compare it, for example, to the only comparable game of the Zig cinematic universe that we have already covered on this channel, Impossible Spellcard. You see, Impossible Spellcard stages are designed as more of a puzzle. Many of them are easily cheesable by just selecting the right item combination for the job to easily negate the stage, while Shoot the Bullet is definitely the one that tests your raw Danmaku dodging skills more of the two. While yes, some of these spell cards still have some patterns that can be followed to make your life easier, you don't really have a lot of tools at your disposal to help you survive, apart from your camera tech, which you need to save up to photograph the boss, since using it to clear yourself of surrounding bullets just ends up making the whole spell last longer all around, with a higher risk of dying to some random bullshit thrown at you. There is way less room for error here. The difficulty of these spells comes from the fact that since the camera charge is so slow, most of these stages end up taking quite the time to successfully clear, on top of surviving to not get it and restart from the beginning of the spell. And be prepared, because in this game, you restart a lot. There is also the aspect that I feel like that most of these spells can come off as difficult as they are, because most of them artificially inflate difficulty, sorry for using the pyrocynical term, by just being a complete bullet spam of insane degrees. Zun probably saw the bullet number slider and cranked it to max with this game. There is just so much shit on the screen to keep track in sheer numbers alone that it becomes hard to keep your eyes both on the boss and Aya. And you know what that means? You die. The fact that most of these spells feel like absolute bullet spams also means that most of these are not really that creative, to be honest. There is a lot of RNG involved in some of them. I mean, With a game with these many spell cards, there are bound to be some that Zune probably slapped together in less than an hour. Even Impossible Spell Card is guilty of this. But for the few spell cards that decide to use old boss mechanics from all the games, there are its highs and lows. On one hand, I really like how Zune decided to reinvent Youmu mechanic to something a lot more threatening to deal with thanks to the risk-reward aspect of this gameplay. On the other, I never want to deal with a single recent spell card ever again for at least a few months of my life. Zune decided that not only should she have some absolute obnoxious Damaku that makes me want to puke at the mere thought of it, but let's also give her a shit ton of invincibility time, because fuck me, I guess. What am I supposed to be playing right now? Kanako's non-spell number 3? To talk about something I like a lot more in specific, it's time to return to the Youmu Blades. Youmu has a really fucking cool spell card in this game called Blood of Asura, which involves in her slashing and dashing to the bottom and the top of the screen super fast. So the real challenge here comes from having enough fast reflexes to be able to photograph her. An absolute gem of a spell card design that I really enjoyed, since it truly feels like a spell card made only for this game compared to the rest, which could be perfectly replicated in a standard Damaku game gameplay wise. There is also a chance spell card which works in a similar way, but not really that impressive in terms of actual danger being thrown your way compared to the Youmu one, and a remedial one that I think it's really cool regardless of this being a photography game or not, showing yet again that Reimu is awesome! Well, if we ignore Fitful Nightmare existence. This game is definitely something in terms of difficulty. It's tough, real tough, way harder than Impossible Spell Card by miles. To be fair, Zune himself always said that the side games are not meant to be someone's first experience, so that is why they are designed to be harder than normal. But holy shit, this game is certainly hard for the era. Like I said, most of the patterns, if you could even call them that, of this game feel overly tedious mainly because of the sheer amount of bullshit thrown at you during them, and you basically having to no-hit it on top of taking the risk of taking photos to pass the stage. And the way most spell cards in this game work is that the more photos you take of the boss and the closer you are to completion, the harder they get by spamming even more bullets, because you know, that is how video game logic works. It's a lot more to manage than what it may look like, and some spells will unironically take you more than 10 minutes stuck on them hoping for a round where you don't get annihilated by RNG or a kick to the face by mailing. Is this game in terms of difficulty frustrating? It depends on the spell card, to be honest. The ones that you get the most enjoyment out of them, regardless if you find them hard or not, are obviously the ones that feel right at home in a photography game, and play around with the camera mechanics, just like the Youmu one that I mentioned, while others just feel like pure torture to go through due to either poor Damaku design or just plain out horrible mechanics. Yes, I am still looking at you, Raisin. I am not letting it go. Like, let's do another comparisons in regards of the difficulty to its more infamous photography sister game, the one Touhou game that everybody loves, Valid Detector. Valid Detector, while still a photography game like Shoot the Bullet, takes a completely different approach in terms of gameplay design. The goal in Valid Detector is to defeat the boss to pass the spell card, since Sumireko is actually able to shoot bullets there, and your camera you use mainly to do enormous damage at the boss to kill it as fast as possible, not something required to pass the stage, since you only need one photo and that's it. As a result, spell cards tend to last a lot less, but if you have ever played Valid Detector, you know how fucking trash Valid Detector spell cards are in terms of design, for how unfun they are. Zune probably wanted to punish the community with how they treated Touhou 16 with this game, but the point that I'm trying to make is that Valid Detector spell cards are shorter, but way harder to approach due to Zune going absolutely bonkers in designing some of them, while Shoot the Bullet spell cards are simpler in terms of the Damaku design, but still come off as hard due to how long they are, due to the camera charge being slow as shit, a quick 15-second searcher or a 1 minute beating to death. Pick your poison, Touhou photography games enjoyer. Valid Detector is still worse, by the way. What the fuck am I even supposed to say on the art direction? I guess that, to be pretty honest, this game has one hell of an ugly color palette. I get that it tries to go for a mix between autumnal and old newspaper style, if that is even something that actually exists and I'm not making the fuck up on the spot, but it just ends up being so dark that it feels like I got my HUD painted over with actual shit, and just makes the game title screen look like some motherfucking FNAF with all the effects on it. The main scene selection UI is not something better. Apart from the awful color palette that I mentioned, it just looks messy all around and has a lot of info which I don't even know if the average player is going to care enough to understand what the fuck they track through the manual. Okay, to say something positive at least, Zune had the decency to redraw the old sprites that would obviously look awful in the Touhou 9 engine, like the character and even background sprites for the USD characters, which is nice to see patching getting quite the love as always, but I am pretty sure that these sprites are made by Zune's wife and not himself, because they are basically in the Touhou 9 sprite style which were made by Zune's wife, and let's be honest, there is no fucking way Zune draws like that. Oh, and Suka decided to show up in a Damaku game for the first time. Huge W for all the Suika heads. You can now stop and anger your favorite drunkard while she's on the way to the liquor store.
Oh no, oh no! I'm the biggest bird, I'm the biggest bird.
The music in this game is what you would expect from the first Touhou side game, and by that I mean that there are only a total of 6 tracks in the whole game. Seems like that this is the actual Touhou game with the smallest soundtrack in the entire series and not Impossible Spell Card, which has 3 more in total, so I'll correct myself on that one. One of them is the menu theme, which is actually pretty chill and nice with the word rain and rustling or leaf sound in the background while the melody is playing, so it gets a plus. And the other 5 are the stages theme. 4 of them are original and the other is a slight remix of the best Aya theme of them all, since it's the Aya game coming out directly after Touhou 9 after all. Of the 4 new tracks, the ones that I particularly like are Sleepless Night of the Eastern Country and Retrospective Kyoto. Sleepless Night is a track that reminds me a lot of Yomu's theme with its fast traditional Japanese music beat. Retrospective Kyoto, I feel like it's the real musical gem of Shoot the Bullet. It's a track that starts off nice and calm, but picks up the pace at the midpoint of the song about 40 seconds in, turning it to something a lot more frenetic and almost emotional even. The first time I heard it, I honestly got surprised at the drop of the song the first time I got around to hear it. Just a track that is honestly really high quality for being a side game one. Not that the Impossible Spell Card didn't have its own banger. And then you have Tango is Watching. Yeah, this is the PTSD track of this game, no way around it. Overall, Touhou Shoot the Bullet is quite the mixed game. I can't go too hard on it since it's Zune's first attempt on making a Touhou side game on its own, but it certainly shows its rough edges even for the year it came out in by looking at it with a modern perspective. But I guess for 4 months of development time, this is more than acceptable, since surprise surprise, making games is tedious and takes a shit ton more time than what people think. But regardless, I still can say that I didn't have some degree of fun with it. Even when we look at it as a game and not a milestone in its own development journey, it still stands up as quite the game on its own, which has some upsides that are truly unique to it, which I certainly can negate that were better than the sequel, and then worsened. Even if this game may come off as too tedious or even janky at times, when it does a spell card right, you can truly feel that it has hit the target in terms of how fun it actually is to play even when you die over and over to it again and not wanting to give up during the process. But what do you think about Shoot the Bullet? Are you willing to, or have you already accompanied Aya in her photo collecting journey? And most importantly, did you have fun while doing it? Be sure to let me know down in the comments below. I am BitZig, and thanks for watching till the end. I'll see you next time, and stay safe everyone!